Sarah's hands trembled as 20 pairs of eyes burned into her back, their whispered insults cutting deeper than any blade. The word "deadweight" echoed through the dojo like a curse, branding her as the girl who didn't belong among these elite fighters. But in just 3 seconds, everything they thought they knew about the quiet girl in the corner was about to shatter like glass. What happened next would haunt that dojo forever. The silence in Master Chen's elite martial arts academy was suffocating as Sarah stepped onto the mat, her worn sneakers squeaking against the polished floor. For 6 months, she'd endured the sideways glances, the cruel whispers, and the not-so-subtle suggestions that maybe she should find a different hobby. Her classmates saw a scrawny 17-year-old girl with glasses and anxiety written across her face, but they had no idea what fire burned beneath that quiet exterior. Today, that fire was about to consume everything they thought they knew about her. "Pair up for sparring," barked Instructor Williams, his voice echoing off the mirrored walls like a gunshot. Williams was the Academy's golden boy, a former MMA champion whose biceps were bigger than Sarah's waist, whose reputation for crushing students' dreams was legendary. He scanned the room with predatory eyes, searching for his next victim, and his gaze landed squarely on Sarah. The room fell silent, save for the hum of fluorescent lights overhead, as 20 students held their breath. "You!" He pointed a thick finger at her, his lips curling into a smirk that made Sarah's stomach turn. "Let's see what 6 months of training has done for our little project." The word "project" hung in the air like poison, and Sarah felt her cheeks burn with humiliation as snickers rippled through the crowd. Marcus, the Academy's star pupil, shook his head and muttered, "This is going to be painful to watch." Jenny, whose family had paid thousands for private lessons, whispered loudly enough for everyone to hear, "Why is she even still here? She's holding everyone back." But as the circle of students formed around the mat, creating a human arena, Sarah closed her eyes and let their words wash over her like rain. They didn't know about the nights she'd spent practicing in her garage until her knuckles bled, or the hundreds of hours she'd studied fight footage until her eyes burned. They couldn't see the steel that had been forged in the crucible of their mockery. Williams cracked his knuckles as he stepped onto the mat, his movements fluid and intimidating, like a panther stalking its prey. "Don't worry, sweetheart," he said with mock concern, his voice dripping with condescension. "I'll go easy on you. Wouldn't want to break our little mascot." The crowd erupted in laughter, and Sarah felt something shift deep inside her chest. A tectonic plate of rage and determination grinding against years of suppressed fury. Her father's voice echoed in her memory. "The quietest storms are often the most devastating. Princess, remember that." As she settled into her fighting stance, her breathing became steady, controlled, almost meditative. The noise of the crowd faded to a whisper, then to nothing at all. Williams lunged forward with the confidence of a man who'd never lost to a student, his massive frame moving with surprising speed as he reached for Sarah with hands that could crush stone. But in that moment, time seemed to slow to a crawl, and Sarah's body moved with a precision that defied explanation. She sidestepped his advance like smoke in the wind, her left hand deflecting his grab, while her right hand shot forward in a lightning-fast strike that connected with a pressure point on his neck. The impact was surgical, exact, and absolutely devastating. Williams's eyes went wide with shock as his legs buckled beneath him, his body crumpling to the mat like a marionette with severed strings. The entire sequence lasted exactly 3 seconds. 3 seconds that rewrote the history of that dojo forever. The silence that followed was deafening, broken only by the sound of Williams gasping for air as he struggled to comprehend what had just happened to him. 20 students stood frozen in disbelief, their mouths hanging open as their minds tried to process the impossible scene before them. Sarah stood over the fallen instructor, her chest rising and falling with controlled breaths, her eyes blazing with a quiet intensity that made everyone take an involuntary step backward. "My grandmother taught me that technique," she said softly, her voice cutting through the silence like a blade. "She learned it during the war, when being underestimated was the difference between life and death." The words hung in the air like an electric charge, and suddenly everyone understood that they'd been living in the presence of something extraordinary without ever knowing it. Master Chen, who had watched the entire exchange from the doorway, stepped forward with tears glistening in his ancient eyes. 50 years I've been teaching," he whispered, his voice trembling with emotion. 50 years, and I've never seen such perfect execution of the sleeping phoenix technique." He looked at Sarah with newfound respect, then at his stunned students who were still trying to pick their jaws up off the floor. "Class dismissed," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of profound revelation. "Go home and think about what you witnessed today." As the students filed out in shocked silence, many of them casting apologetic glances at Sarah, Williams slowly pulled himself to his feet, his face flushed with embarrassment and something else, genuine respect. The dojo emptied until only Sarah and Master Chen remained, standing in the golden light that streamed through the windows like liquid honey. "Why didn't you tell me about your training?" he asked, his weathered hands clasped behind his back. Sarah adjusted her glasses and smiled, the first genuine smile she'd worn in that place for 6 months. "You never asked," she replied simply. "You all saw what you expected to see, and I let you. Sometimes the greatest strength comes from being invisible until the moment you choose not to be." Master Chen nodded slowly, understanding flooding his features like dawn breaking over mountains. "Your grandmother would be proud," he said. And for the first time since starting at the academy, Sarah felt like she truly belonged somewhere. As Sarah walked home that evening, her reflection in store windows showed the same quiet girl who'd entered the dojo that morning. But something fundamental had changed in the space between heartbeats. She'd learned that respect isn't given. It's earned in moments of truth that reveal who we really are beneath the surface. The whispers that followed her now carried admiration instead of mockery, and the girl they'd once called Deadweight had become the legend they'd tell their own students about for years to come. Sometimes, the most powerful victories aren't won through violence, but through the simple act of showing the world that you refuse to be defined by their limitations.